So it's a big game. It's not just about Bangladesh. It's about us too. What was a students' movement at point A, at point B, after the Supreme Court decision saying we accept the demand, the thing should have died down. No, it picked up. It became Islamic. It was students' movement. Now it is Islamic Chhatri Chabir and Awami and Jamaat Islami.
Whites came, they brought their, we had land and they had the Bible. When they left, we had the Bible, they had the land.
Yes.
How do you see the India-US relationship progressing now?
I can be a good politician and say we'll wait for the results.
You're not a diplomat.
We've got the definition of secularism a little too awry. Only the governments will be secular, can be secular.
Of course.
A human being is not secular, is either
atheist or
agnostic, religious or whatever.
Namaste and welcome to A Questioning Mind. I'm your host Sagarika, and as you can see we have a very eminent guest here that I don't really need to introduce. As such, he is the best suited here to tell us what is going on with the current situation in Bangladesh, which is an issue close to the hearts of many, especially myself. I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Mr. Vikram Sood has been the former head of R&AW, which is the Research and Analysis Wing, India's Intel Department, and he is also a very well-known author and speaker on issues of narrative building and the Point 5 war that India faces. With his experience, I'm really hoping that you are able to, because you're very candid about these issues. So to begin with, one of the things I am seeing thrown around, and this has been the rhetoric of the international media as well as the Indian one, which apparently just decides to copy-paste whatever Reuters and BBC prints. So we've only heard that Sheikh Hasina has been ousted and she flees to India. There is no talk of a coup and of her being overthrown and of seeking refuge. Does this play into a narrative, or is it just a journalistic oversight?
No, I think it's a narrative that has been built elsewhere and copy-pasted here. If you recall, even in the case of Ukraine, all our newspapers, all of them, bar none, were covering news from Reuters, AFP, CNN, and etc., etc. So it was always giving a one-sided view of how things were evolving. And in this case too, it seems that we're getting only a partial review, a view that they've come and they've landed, as you said. And what happened, what led to it, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about the killings, the burning of the houses. I don't think, I have not seen any photograph of those people climbing on top of Mujib's statue and breaking it, or burning Anand's house, the musician.
Yes.
They're not, of temples being burned. In fact, what I've seen is a fact check from a German agency saying false, 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 old news. So, they're in an attempt to play down what is happening, what was a students' movement at point A, at point B, after the Supreme Court decision saying we accept the demand. The thing should have died down. No, it picked up. It became Islamic. It was students' movement. Now it is Islamic Chhatri Chabir and Awami and Jamaat Islami. They're in the picture.
So how legitimate do you, think that the students' movement was? And the reason I'm asking this is because it follows a very established playbook, which we saw in Serbia with Otpor as well. We've seen that, in India, we've seen that at any time that protests need to become violent, it is preceded by an apparent students' movement. Are they just fodder for the cannons, so to speak, that come later?
Like you remember the JNU incident?
Yes.
Tukde
Yes,
gangs and all that thing,
yes.
they were Bharat tere tukde honge. That was one kind of a demo, which then built itself into other issues, came out onto the street, the Shaheen Bagh, and into the CA riots. So it's enthusiasm maybe, it's bravado, it's nothing else to do. So you join these movements and hoping that you will get something out of it at the end of the day, which never happened because that is given to the guys who have been running you.
Youth is wasted on the young, they say.
Yes.
And yes, it is idealism, I believe, that causes it, and the fantasy of utopia that resides after. But right now, what started as a student, it didn't even start as a student movement, it was instigated, and some students were instigated to join it. Now that there's no illusion of that being the case anymore. Even then, we do not see an outcry about sheer jihad, which the BNP and Jamaat-e-Islami have no issue calling out.
No.
Right? That is something that they've put on their YouTube channel, saying that we have won jihad in Bangladesh.
But you see that even in England,
Right.
they're not saying what is happening. Instead, they seem to be going after the whites
Yes.
who've been protesting
Yes.
and arresting them, but they don't want to talk about this aspect of who started it.
The police greeting started with Assalamu alaikum.
So, he started with that.
Yes.
So they are giving in to them. Perhaps in that set framework of mind, they think it's okay for them not to talk about this as an Islamic thing. It's just a revolt in some wretched corner of the earth.
Right.
They'll manage themselves. But do you recall during the Egyptian Arab Spring, Gumail, I think was his name.
Yes.
He was on Twitter.
Yes.
He was telling them he was in New York. When he came to an Egyptian came back home, and he was suddenly the center point for all the things. Mubarak hands over, elections are held, and our friend Gumail goes back to Google in New York and finished, job done.
So is this the first successful color revolution since 2014 Ukraine?
I don't know whether it's successful or not.
It is successful from an American perspective.
It's successful in the sense of having ousted the lady. Now you have the other lady, and whether this isn't going to be beneficial to Bangladesh.
No, of course not. I don't believe color revolutions are expected to have
They're not
that.
expected. They're expected to further American interests.
Yes, for installing a puppet regime.
Yes. So that's
So from that perspective, it is the
successful one. Successful.
Right, and we expect it to remain that way because India has no, despite its, the international rhetoric of muscular, strongman foreign policy, none of that has ever come to pass. If, buying cheap oil for poor people is muscular, while the rest of the neighborhood burns and we stand watching, so we don't do anything. But in that sense, we expect the status quo to remain this way with Muhammad Yunus.
I think we'll have to take some hard decisions. You're going to get refugees. What do you do with them?
There are 16 crore Hindu
How do
Bangladeshis.
you take them in, send them back? You take them in selectively. How do you decide which one to take? Would you have the Rohingyas coming in with them?
Of course, they're already here though, so their
they may
needs
be
are
having a
facilitated.
few surplus. That solves their problem with Myanmar, and they
Right.
pass them on to you here. And what happens to Bengal? We haven't seen what's been appearing in the Bangla papers. I believe it is pretty bad. So the mood is pretty bad, both sides, or fearful. So I don't know where it's going to take us. Then what is going to be China's role? We may say it has done nothing, presently, but it surely has something to gain from it.
Certainly.
They all have a little bit to gain from this, and they see it as, this lesser players get something, it's disadvantage in there. Refugees, trade, not so much trade for us as for them, it's a disadvantage. Security is going to be, remember, we have the largest border in any country, it's with Bangladesh, we don't think of it like that.
Yes, because it's not
smaller, it's little big more than the Chinese border, way bigger than the Pakistan border, and we have, I think, a total of 12,000 kilometers of land border with now all three hostile, inimical or adversarial, however we want to put it, unfriendly neighbors. I don't think any country in the world has that. And they're all three different kinds of people.
No,
it's
Israel,
not even one.
Israel has that.
But not so much border line.
No, no longer hostile either, yes.
No, but their neighbors are of a different kind.
Yes.
I mean, they're not armed with nuclear weapons for one. They don't have armies trained only for them. Saudi Arabia is far away. Iran is far away. So we have them on our borders.
And with regard to refugees, one thing I think the audience should be aware of is that CAA does not apply to these refugees because CAA applies to only pre-2014 entrants. Since you mentioned Myanmar, there is talk of Project K that's been revived because it seems very likely with the Christianized state that takes from Myanmar and Bangladesh and parts of India. How real is the possibility now that the current puppet government allows the USA to, establish the base at St. Martin, which was denied by Sheikh Hasina?
No, she actually did protest.
Yes.
Oh, she mentioned it that this is what the Americans
Yes.
are trying. And then they wanted, that's how it appeared that they wanted St. Martin's Island as a base. She said no to that. So is the American dream fulfilled now that they're going to get St. Martin's Island be the base? And this Christian co-land or Zoland, they called it.
Cookie Chin Zone.
Cookie Chin Mizo Zone.
Yes.
And I thought first time she'd mentioned only Chittagong and Arakan areas, Chin areas, not India, but
No, it includes parts of Manipur and Lithuania.
yes, I think that probably she said it later, not when she was first saying it.
Yes.
Anyhow, well, it's possible that the Bangladesh territories and the Myanmar territories, they may succeed, but I doubt if the Indians are going to allow this.
Right.
We're not going to let it happen.
Now, with regards to our territorial integrity, us protecting it, I agree that this is not government. I learned recently, I'm not sure about how true this is, but apparently prior to this government there were talks about ceding Siachen to Pakistan at some point. So, and it might just be rumors, but...
No, I don't think...
But we've never been very casual about a territorial integrity like that. But anyway, the idea is that the narcotics trade involving China as well will flow through the new Christianized state that is, fantasized about at this point. It will flow into India better. And that kind of dulls the borders and allows them in a long-term plan to...
Sagarika, the first thing is whether or not there is the plan to have
Right. Which is why I'm asking an intelligence person how true this plan
What is the advantage they will have for having this, which they cannot have with Bangladesh in their pocket? So why would they want to do this kind of a thing? Because then it will mean that the Indians are going to get into the act, unless they want the Indians to be involved.
It's a small portion which, they think that'll just keep hostilities stirring in that region while the rest, it was a 2.5 front war before, now it's almost a 3.51. So it's just a part that keeps on boiling, like Doklam and Galwan have done for years before the actual clashes happened. And similarly,
I think this is far too speculative. It's somebody just spinning yarns and saying. The main thing is they wanted Hasina out. They wanted BNP in, and that would have served interests. Because Awami League, Mujibur Rahman, represent an era of a failed American policy. Remember the 7th Fleet and all that? Nothing worked. So their original dream, we heard that. And who wants another economic power, strong Asian, along with the Chinese and maybe the Japanese in Asia? What happens to the West? What happens to their economies? So it's a big game. It's not just about Bangladesh. It's about us too.
So speaking about us, the R&DW desk in Bangladesh was caught unaware at the sudden overthrow and...
I have no comments. I don't know. I doubt it, but I don't.
Yes.
I don't know.
However, the Indian government has hardly made any comments, has not called out any culprits, and their silence is, rather deafening in the face of the international uproar around the situation. So, was the Indian government caught by surprise?
I wouldn't know at all.
Right.
I doubt if it was caught by surprise. Because Bangladesh and neighboring countries have been under. We watched them carefully, we may not do anything. So I doubt if they were caught unawares. And it is also not necessary to start commenting immediately and making allegations. That becomes official. So it's not necessary to comment immediately. You take your time. Decide what you want to do and then give a comment. If you think, it is their country, they've decided, they've overthrown it, as long as you don't commit genocide, that's the only thing we can comment on.
Genocide is something that is in progress right now. I'm not sure it'll go up to genocide, like I mentioned, there's 16 crore Hindus, but ethnic cleansing is certainly something that is ongoing.
We could talk about that forcefully, maybe we will. But, we don't like this, we don't take kindly to this as on humanitarian grounds, not on religious grounds. I don't know what the policies in Delhi are. I'm only speaking as a man who is no longer connected with these things.
What is the issue with calling out the Hindu minorities as Hindu being targeted for their faith, when it is their idols, their temples being desecrated, rapes and gang rapes of Hindu women, which has been ongoing in our neighborhood for a long time. A lady called Nupur Sharma was killed in Bangladesh for having the same name as Nupur Sharma. She was pregnant at the time. So this is not new. However, obviously with mob violence in its full force, it picks up a lot of amplification. The violence gets amplified. And so why is nobody, not just internationally, but also the Indian government, never names minorities when they are Hindu? Is there, what are the side effects, the issues that can arise out of this?
We've got the definition of secularism a little too awry. Only the governments will be secular, can be secular.
Of course.
A human being is not secular, is either
atheist or
agnostic, religious or whatever. And neither of them does make him a hater.
Of course.
So, but this is inbuilt into one religion. Islam has a lot of things that they should be doing to infidels. It's written in the Quran.
Right.
So that is what ticks, and it's not here, it's everywhere. It's the same thing, over and over again. So how are you going to tackle that is not something that only one country will decide. But you will have to be seen to be doing something about it soon enough.
Do you expect?
Well,
anything
there is
to
a
come?
hope, not an expectation. Because, look, we are a billion 40, billion 1.4 billion, and we have a huge Muslim population which has grown with us. It's not
Yes.
an immigrant population. It is something they wear the same. We all wear the same clothes. We speak the same language in Bengal or in Tamil Nadu. The language is the same. The dress is the same, except that now it's becoming more prominent that you wear a cap or you wear a hijab. But that never used to be so.
Yes.
Now this is a reaction which is setting in. The government is now trying to control the Waqf board. They wanted to do the CA, which was not anti-Muslim, but it was made so. They want an NR, National Register. They don't want that. So somewhere it will have to be just got done. And the other problem that they will face with this influx of refugees is, we'll have to be very careful what happens to the Siliguri chicken's neck. That's going to be a big problem, a security problem.
It's being spoken about a lot, but honestly, the only people doing the talking are people on, media and YouTube, etc. There's nobody involved in the process who is even discussing it, and it will be seen as, I'm guessing that there will be a lot of American commentary about it pretty much immediately as soon as any intent comes to fore. With the situation now, as it unravels in Bangladesh, do we have no option, and is there any way that the government will be pushed to strengthen the chicken's neck?
No, they can chicken the chicken's neck regardless of what happens in Bangladesh.
Yes, but that's never been done.
That's what it should be, because they have done a lot of work elsewhere along the border, and this is a very tricky portion. It is the home of Naxalbari. So if you go back to history, then there is a lot of things that need to be done. Otherwise, you're cutting yourself off from the rest of Northeast. And this time you may not get overflight or those kinds of facilities across Bangladesh. So there will be pressure on us on Teesta. So those kinds of things will be created.
Moving on from security to, the thing you write about, narratives. Muhammad Yunus has faced charges for embezzlement. I have written about this, probably not in an article, but I think the government of Norway has also called him out. They had cases against him.
There,
Yes, but they found him involved in embezzlement or in fraudulent activity and embezzlement of funds. He has been accused by Sheikh Hasina of also doing the same in Bangladesh, of coercing the poorest of women for financial gain, exploiting their poverty essentially. These are the people he was supposed to help with his microloans, etc. I remember when he got the Nobel Prize and the ideas around it, and it is also taught in universities abroad. Is there a correlation between all of the Nobel laureates, all of the Magsa Award winners, and the Western, winners of Western awards for being deep state assets? It's come.
it's a club. You join the old boys club.
Right.
You've got access to people who matter. And there are photographs of him with the Clintons,
Yes.
and they have been associated with him, and I think they gave money for his association or society. So they all become part of a system, and it's like a club. You must go in wearing a tie beyond 7 o'clock, or you can't go in half-sleeve shirts, or sandals. So you have to be properly attired to suit the occasion, so that you are one of us. And that's how it works. The system works like this. You have, he may not be deep state, but he is probably an asset for the deep state.
Yes, of course.
So he's been put there, happily selected. He flew out from Paris, like Khomeini did in '79.
Yes.
This time he flew out from
Exactly.
Paris. Just a coincidence.
And we have those pictures where both of them are being compared with
Uh-huh.
an 80. I think Khomeini was, of course, much younger when he.
No, Khomeini was a national leader,
Yes.
Islamic leader. This chap is
He's
actually an economist. who's
only
been-
someone liked by students with very little experience.
And he's pretty, well, he's up in years, 83,
83,
I think.
yes.
No, 83, 82, so they're all like that now. America also going to have
Yes.
a leader in there. So it's a situation that will evolve. Though it's only fifth she left now, and
It's
today is the seventh,
Eighth.
So it's going to evolve over time. Maybe they will fall out with each other, or made to fall out with each other.
That's
She's old
unlikely
and her
considering.
son is coming in. Will he be accepted?
Right,
What
right,
is the
right.
role of the
That
army?
way.
Will the army stay on? Will this interim government be for 6 months, or 1 year, or 2? When will the next elections be held? So all these things, they will now first make themselves secure wherever they are. And then, will it be an Islamic republic again? Like it was in
That was East Pakistan. And
Khalid
prior to
Zia's
75,
time?
yes.
Or will it be just the Republic of Bangladesh?
Right, so you mean, whether Khalida Zia follows the American line? I mean, not her herself, of course, her
Oh, they will let
descendants,
her do
etc.
her bit, so long as she does it for them, whatever. That's the trade-off.
Right. Is there a chance of another military coup, or is the military in power with Yunus as a puppet like in Pakistan? Is there a chance of that happening, and if so, what are the repercussions for India?
In the past, I think Bangladesh has had several coups.
Yes.
Some lasted 6 months, some lasted
Yeah.
6 days.
So yes, some
So
days.
it's they know how to handle coups much better than we do. So I don't know.
I mean, thank goodness for that. We don't want to learn.
So I don't know what actually will happen to this state of affairs. What will the Jamaat Islami want? What will the military want? And what can the BNP give? We don't know. We don't even know what the Jamaat Islami will want. Because they're going to call the shots with the BNP. So will they want their chap as Home Minister or something? Or only Minister for Religious Affairs? We don't know any of those things.
Either way, I mean, how would an official post matter? We know that they kind of run the roast over there. How would an official post matter? They will still get,
There's also, you don't, it's not just that the post will deliver, it is the significance that I, Vikram Sood, I'm a minister, I'm not just a fellow who does things for you and sit in the back seat.
That's
No, I'm the guy who did it for you. So I want my following to come. I want to secure my place. So that's human nature. So that will happen.
What happens to Bangladesh's textile industry and, all of the economic growth it had made over Hasina's relatively stable political...
The Bangladeshi textile mills were doing very well. But where did the cotton come from? So, you want to run your textile mills, you need the cotton.
Right.
It's not, there could be trade-offs. And there is always, tista can work both ways. so can Brahmaputra. But those are things that, we don't talk about it immediately. I'm just sort of pointing out where the things are, the sensitive issues.
One of the things that I actually, the article that I was writing that I told you about, I was discussing the difference in foreign policy, in diplomacy, how the global order had deemed it to run initially, which is how India functions. It functions with the legitimate government in power at that time, regardless of whether it has come through a coup or whether it is the Taliban. We build relationships with that government. We don't put across our preferences for government. It is completely the opposite with the US, which decides which government it wants in the countries it deals with.
Yeah.
So it essentially overturns every rule of diplomacy that has existed. It's something Eric Garcetti has done in India. He has made statements about Bangladesh. All of the US State Department has made statements about Sheikh Hasina. And Sheikh Hasina had called it out as a regime change operation prior to the elections as well in Bangladesh. So how do you see this playing out? How do you expect the American State Department to be handling this as a matter of dealing with them in terms of foreign policy? Do you expect them to be getting more loans, funds, etc., to try and stabilize the region?
They will try, and the Americans do deals. You do this for me, I do this for you. So you give me St. Martin's Island, and I'll give you this. I'm just citing an example.
Sure.
Or we will give you trade relaxation. You can export to us without duty. Duty-free goods imported or reduced tax. These things they offer, and they'll have few selected people in the system. That's how I would do it too. Put 2 or 3 guys, not everybody, in the system to control the situation. And then just pause and look around what is to be done with the neighboring country. Because you got one here, you got one there, and you got this other chap on top who is on his own. The Chinese are on top. They're not going to collaborate with the Chinese, but Pakistanis and the Bangladeshis, they can.
Now, this is the thing, when you say they're not going to collaborate with the Chinese, it was the Americans who led to China's rise, too late when they realized it. Even then, there is a lot of interplay between China as well as the US State Department. Not that it is good for their citizens, but I don't think citizens have a say at all. In that sense, the USA is very, very undemocratic. So, the US has found a lot of common ground with China when it comes to India's neighborhood. And it has consistently supported the Chinese approach or decided to keep out of it. This is one thing that I find, is there a way that they think that China is also willing to negotiate, and they believe that China, while India is very often the kind of country that says that we're sovereign, we take our own decisions, does China not, giving up its game in the early stages, allow the US to collaborate with it on certain aspects?
No, they will certainly collaborate or give room to each other in certain issues, because the Chinese are also playing the long game.
Yes.
For them, encirclement of India is a goal, and fairly successful if you go to the Maldives, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and so you give room to each other, don't cross paths, and they will let the Chinese be there. The Americans are not going to say no to them. They can't, beyond a point. So they will adjust with each other.
China is not someone that negotiates. It's not a country that really negotiates, as we've seen. I think they've claimed Vladivostok as well at some point. But They are a revanchist, country, and it's communist, so they have no difference of opinion is allowed in that sense. So how is it that the US consistently feels that it can negotiate with China and as such keep India down, while the most pro-US government that we have at the center that has ever been in history for India, we've never had such a pro-American government before. Why are we still unable to have them as for the West to recognize our interests? And I'm not saying this because I'm going to get a ton of comments about we don't need Western validation. I'm not saying this in terms of validation. I'm speaking from a geostrategic perspective.
Yeah.
Why don't our interests align in that sense?
It's a situation which intrigues me as well, that we talk of common values. We have same systems of government, ineffective, effective, but I think they find it easier to deal with China. Because you're dealing with a dictator, you get your system, either he says yes or he says no.
Right.
And your decisions come quickly. And once they're given, then the whole thing flows automatically. Economics, I'm talking about economics.
Sure.
In India, you know how it takes time. Someone will say yes or no, then you look over the shoulder, and then it maybe not just take off. So this is democracy at work, and that's dictatorial regime at work. Once the boss says yes, it will be done the next day. Virtually it will start. Here it doesn't happen like that. You have state governments who have different parties, who don't want to do it for you. Ultimately, the other side gets tired and says, that won't happen.
So even
if they want to build a road from A to B, regardless of whether it's usable or not, it will be done.
Yes,
if you want to put a factory at the end of the road, you will get the road by day 25.
So any government that comes to power that the USA aligns with in India, for example, whatever government comes to power, whatever political party, whatever face is put there, then we would expect them to sort of wield power and ensure that American interests were catered to, which is not something that this center does, right? It does not wield power over state governments in that sense. The federalism is maintained. And so that is something that, the dictatorial aspect is something that America always demands of nations.
Yeah, Americans demand a lot of things from other nations. They even thought that once they give money and development to the Chinese, they will become democratic and free.
Like you mentioned, they want dictators like this. The dictators are easier to work with than democracies. So they'd want a puppet government democracy.
That is the ideal situation. All governments should be puppet governments, including their own in many ways.
Yeah, it is.
So when they said that we are going to give help to China to develop and grow because it is in the American interest, because then China will become free and democratic. That is the narrative story. The real story is money. You're going to put your factories there, will make cheap goods for you, you keep your inflation down, they get the money, and they also get part of the development. That's the deal. That's what globalization was. Now it is going to turn the other way. If globalization also means that India will also develop, then resources will become scarce. We will fight for the same market. We will sell drugs cheaper than theirs. We will sell cloth cheaper than theirs, and machinery. So that hits both their resources and markets. Do you think they will allow that?
Speaking of American corporate interests, Sheikh Hasina chose the European Airbus over the American Boeing. And the US has been known to wage violence, not been afraid to use force in foreign lands to protect corporate interests since over a century, right? United Fruit Company, Chiquita now. It still functions. Like imagine a company that got away with the massacre of Colombians, still functions, and they've made Colombia a drug haven, and kept it as poor as it was. So we've had that. We've had Gaddafi toppled in Libya. For
the moment he gave up his nuclear option, he was done away with because he wanted to be the head of the African world, and so he was
without the petrodollar though.
Huh?
As a sort of rival to the petrodollar, so there was an economic.
Yes, Saddam also wanted.
Also wanted the same thing.
So when Bush talked about the success, what was the term he used on that ship? He said something about having won the war. Something he said, I can't remember. It was actually saying that we got the dollar back.
Right.
Fight was about the dollar. So we didn't buy the American F series, we bought Rafale.
Yes.
We didn't agree to the American sanction on Russian oil. They haven't forgotten that. So we did buy some aircraft from the Americans. I think we bought this C series and other equipment, but didn't buy the main thing. So that has ranked with them because the military industrial complex still functions. And that determines a lot of their policies. Ukraine, you wait and see, they've used up American equipment. Now it will come to Americans helping rehabilitate Ukraine with American money, which will again go back to the Americans.
Of course.
I mean, they'll get a house, but the money will go to them.
It's impressive how none of that money ever flows to citizens.
No.
It never flows to citizens. It just
stays in the American bank.
It's just like Pakistan. It just never reaches the citizen.
All the money stays in Pakistan, just 10% comes to these people.
Yeah, I mean, they have palaces and an incredible array of beautiful supercars in their mansions.
I was at a conference once in Dubai on Afghanistan, and there were representatives from Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, Iran, America, of course. And when it came to my turn to speak, I said, we're saying a lot of things that we can do for Afghanistan to stabilize it. What do the Afghans want? Have we asked them? So the one of the Afghan deputy ministers was there. He did up, let me answer this question. And he went into a long narration that, these chaps come and say, buy this. We say, we don't want this, we want that, we want this, we want tractors, we want this. No, this is the only thing we can sell, we buy it. So that thing is left with us, we'd have no use, but the money is gone.
I think Desmond Tutu had said this, that when the whites came, they brought their, we had land and they had the Bible. When they left, we had the Bible, they had the land.
Yes.
So
that's what happened.
It's a bad trade-off for the countries they venture into. How do you see the India-US relationship progressing now?
I can be a good politician and say we'll wait for the results.
You're not a diplomat.
Now I think the Americans are not too busy for anything else. There will be no change. The status quo will continue. Within a framework or within two tram lines, the American policy is consistent. Largely. America first. You next, maybe. But America first. And the only thing changing is how you're going to do it.
America first is a completely valid policy from a nationalistic perspective.
It is, but they have the ability to enforce it. They think they have the ability, or they had the ability up to a point to enforce it. Yes. Now it is getting more and more difficult. So whoever comes to be the president, the attitudes will change slightly, ideologically maybe, because if you're pro-left or pro-right, you do it differently, but basically it will remain the same. We'll just have to deal with either a Republican president or a Democratic president. He may come and visit us twice or not at all. Makes no difference. These mad things, actually these are all, the real issue is what are you going to give and take, not what you're going to say on the TV.
No, true. However, it does matter.
It gives you an
You've
indication.
written about it. Who am I talking to? But
Sorry?
it does matter. You've written about it.
Yeah.
What they say on TV.
Yeah.
Would an actually muscular policy? I don't even know what that means, because would the restatement of a sovereign policy continue to make sense, and do we have the actions to back it up in any way, considering the state of our neighborhood?
Yeah, it does. Your capabilities and intentions. Your capabilities actually determine the intentions. Well, if you don't have the capability, you can say, I can do this, that. Nobody takes you seriously. But if I have the capability, then I have the ability. Now, having had the ability to do it, do I also have the intention to use it? So that is the assessment people want to make about you, or me, or anybody. This chap has got this amount of force. Is he going to use it? So when November 2008 happened in Mumbai, what did we do? Nothing. We had the capability, but we had no intention.
Apparently the intention was discussed and then cast aside.
Correct?
Apparently backdoor conversations about the intention to act had happened, and then it was dismissed.
Yeah, well, determines, that means you don't want to do it.
But then we've been facing attacks in Jammu and Kashmir, since the last year has been horrible for us in the Jammu region. And we've not shown any intention either, and it wouldn't take a massive show of force, but it would still take some show of force.
I think they will have to do a massive show of force.
Well, we should, but it's not happened. Again, the intent.
That question.
So
I can't
you
answer.
said our capability would determine intent, but we have the capability for so many things that we don't intend
to use. Yeah.
So, and anyway, I think the other way around also works, right? If we have the intent, we'll build the capability to do something. And at this time, do you foresee us working on any of those capabilities?
Well, we did show some intentions, our abilities when we first did the Uri reply, and then the Balakot. That meant that we have the intention also. So there has been quiet for a long time since then. And now I think the Pakistanis may be trying something because they need a diversion also. If we reply rejoinder, they will say Pakistan in danger, and they hope that Imran Khan is forgotten. He's going to be released they're going to do a demonstration on the 30th of August for his release, the same style as in Bangladesh. So we've got a very active neighborhood. And we will face these. If you get refugees from the other side, what do we do? Both sides. I'm sure they're thinking about all these things seriously, and I don't see why they should tell us everything.
No, of course, that is true. But again, since we discuss narratives and since you write about them, the fact that there is a lot of any void is filled eventually.
Mhm.
There is no black hole on the internet.
Mm.
And so when it comes to silence, it will be interpreted in various ways, even if we think that they don't need to tell us anything. So, what should they be telling us?
You have a point that, complete and mysterious silence is.
It's
is
happened
not,
in the case of Manipur recently.
Yeah.
We know that from a security perspective many things have happened, and yet there will always be video leaks, right? Targeted video leaks that happen on certain days, planned.
Mm.
And there is no response, there is only silence, and that silence is always interpreted in certain ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are certain cases where you have to speak out, and governments have to choose carefully where you want to speak out and where you want to be seen to be present. So that's a decision which is which the governments have to make, and they sometimes don't make the right decision. They didn't do it right in Bombay. They did it better in Uri. They didn't do it well. I thought they delayed too much in the farm protests. But maybe that was the right thing to do. Otherwise, there would have been bloodshed. So we can never be sure what is the right. If hindsight is always 100%.
Is it? We've had enough hindsight to give us foresight.
Yeah, it should. One should build our stories from our hindsights, our foresights from our hindsight. That's true.
Thank you very much. It's been a very enlightening discussion. Before I let you go, though, in the age of the internet and of social media, is there a sort of caveat, or is there any advice you'd like to give to younger people who, we've discussed history right now. I mentioned United Fruit Company and even pre-2014, and yet most conversations on the internet, most information on the internet does not go back to a very long time ago, and information retention is very short. So to the younger people who get that information from the internet, mostly for the major part, and are not used to reading about all issues, is there advice that you'd want to give them in order to build on critical thinking capacity and understanding media legitimacy?
What happened in Bangladesh happened in 5 days maybe. The crucial bit, last thing, it happened all on social media. Because of social media, not on, because of social media. Things just moved at that pace. And suddenly the students were Islamists. And she had to flee. Now, there are all the students were born after 1971. They have no personal attachment with the past. And this attachment has been removed because it is not there. Unless somebody digs into Mujibur Rahman on the net and finds something which is written by the Westerners, not even written by the Bangladeshis, so much. You have to dig further and find out. So I think we are losing the art of reading. You can watch a lot of things on the cell phone. 6 people can sit on the table and the family sits there, they all sit with their own iPhones and phones, and they're in their own worlds. So we're not connecting. We think we are.
And then just for the audience, please do read the 2 books that Mr. Sood has published on the same topic. The 3rd one hopefully comes out.
Hopefully by November it should come.
Right. Sorry, you were talking about reading, building critical thinking.
So this thing comes from reading, not all this that we see on internet or YouTube influencers and all. They are there for them to do it for them. For you to to do what they want you to do is by example. आज बोल दिया कल खत्म हो गया बात, finished. There is no a book. I am still old-fashioned. A book is something that you have to read. And a book about India should be a book by Indians also, not just what others have. I'm glad that people are writing about India. There's so many youngsters have written, and that's what we should be reading. That's what we should be understanding. Otherwise we'll lose our reading habits, we'll lose our culture, we'll lose everything. If you lose your culture, you've lost everything.
Okay, I said I'd let you go, but sorry, since you mentioned that, we losing our culture, it's another thing that I just wrote about. And so when a Chinese person goes to the US, they go as Chinese seeking betterment for their livelihood and for their families back in China. They do not go to become or to pretend to be Americans, and they are threatened. I remember during COVID there were a lot of Chinese Americans asking, if it were racist to call it the Wuhan virus and all of these things. They were still very attached to their roots. Yet Indians, even at this moment, I can guarantee you that 90% of the diaspora Indians who are not old, the younger diaspora Indians, are going about their day pretending that all is right with the UK, all is right with the USA, and they are glad to have escaped into a place with better air quality and infrastructure. And they don't want to ruin that or shatter the illusion until it is too late. For example, the students in Ukraine, they didn't even want to leave Ukraine while they were being evacuated. A lot of them were shown on video. They're young. I'm not placing blame here. What do you think? Apart from reading, what is their hope for staying connected to their roots? And their roots are Hindu. That is a word that is not used. Their roots are not Indian because Farid Zakaria is Indian. He hardly is Indian in that sense. So even if it's the Muslim diaspora, the roots that they maintain for their Indianness are Hindu in nature. And this is not addressed adequately. So apart from reading, what would keep people more grounded to reality and aware of the circumstances that our population, even diaspora population, Indian urban populations, face the consequences of the future?
I think many of us lose the language. We don't speak at home Punjabi. If you're a Punjabi family living in Canada, you want to speak English. The present first generation, of course, did speak only Punjabi, and the male who worked learned to speak English. But generally, we don't habits. We want to align ourselves, assimilate as soon as possible. That is okay for that. I think Indians should have to develop two personalities, one at home, one as an Indian, one for your work culture. You have to be punctual. You can't say I'll come 10 o'clock but show up at 11:30 without saying sorry even. So or this will be delivered to you on day 7 and it should be done on day 7, not 8 or 9. So that work culture has to be kept separate from your culture at home. Your prayers at home, your dance music at home, your speaking at home. And a child can speak 2-3 languages simultaneously. They can be taught. Hindi, English, French, or Tamil, English and French.
There is one thing, you mentioned the dance, the song. I know of several families, especially from the southern part of India, that maintain these traditions, whether even the Dravidian families in Tamil Nadu and the diaspora Dravidian families, even if they are Tamil Brahmins, they might maintain these traditions, and yet they'll despise of the overall Hindu culture or of Indianness, there is a certain disconnect there.
Yeah.
What has
But
happened?
what you wrote today is part of that. I mean,
So it's the image, is the okay. So what I wrote about will be pulled up on the screen.
because like other religions, you have a book, you follow that.
Right.
But we don't have one book.
Mm.
We don't even have. You can worship 10 different ways and still be the same Hindu.
I think one of the issues that I think is also detrimental to critical thinking, but also the what you mentioned, not having the book. We derive our philosophies from spirituality and from real life. And real life has always been dynamic in nature. But spirituality is constant, the divine is constant. The recognition of that divine is very easy through any form of sadhana, which was first given from family to family, sampradaya to sampradaya. Everybody had their own chants. Or, New Age, there were always new gurus to follow, which is how the Sikh Panth came about, which is how the Vaishnav and other Panths came about. And that is a culture where, people don't have that sadhana. Maybe I'm just trying to streamline it down to what will help. Because despite the cultural affinity towards some Indian aesthetics, and how communists would wear that big bindi and the sari and have those huge portraits of deities in their homes, and yet Narayana Murthy came out in full support of Muhammad Yunus as well. He had been called out a lot, his family had been called out a lot for funding Sheldon Pollock and all of the anti-Hindu forces that were working for American un-Hindu interests. But it had settled down for a bit with the rise of Sudha Murthy as,
as the
PR person. I don't know, but now that he's said this, he's being recognized again for his funding. So I can keep doing this and probably have another chat. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I've taken up quite a lot of your time. But thank you so much.
Great talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Great talking to you.